I, female 27, live with my parents. I have a job and I've been helping them by paying rent and buying groceries. My brother is married and has 2 children, a toddler and a newborn. He recently lost his job and has asked my parents if he can move back in until he's back on his feet. My parents told me I'd need to move out of the basement suite and into my mom's small hobby room while my brother and his family stayed with them. I disagreed and they said it was their house and their rules. I don't own a lot of stuff. Everything in the suite belongs to them. I don't even own my bed. I packed up my clothes and laptop and went to work as usual. I work out of town for 14 days and then I get 7 days off. While at work, I booked an all-inclusive for my week off. It cost me less than rent and food at my parents' house. I told my parents my plans and they were cool with it. I started getting texts a few days ago asking where my rent and grocery money was. I said that I moved out, that if I wasn't living and eating there, I wouldn't be giving them money. They got really upset because they were counting on the money to help support my brother. They said that I moved out without giving notice. I said they literally gave away my living space and that I didn't owe them anything if I wasn't there. I asked them how much they were charging my brother. I was giving them $1,800 a month for basement suite rent and food, and I was only home a maximum of 14 days a month, usually less. My brother called me to say I was an idiot for not helping him out. I pointed out that he hadn't sent our parents money when he was employed. He said he had a family to support and needed his money. He said if I returned, he and his family would move upstairs and I could have my space back. I'd actually done the math though. I can stay at all-inclusives, which covers my room, maid service, food, alcohol and entertainment for 2/3 of what I was paying my folks, and I don't have to live through Edmonton winters when I'm not working. I sent my parents $500 to help them with groceries, and then I went to the beach. My parents, my brother, his wife, and a fair few of my other relatives are saying that I'm an idiot for abandoning them in a time of need. I think I shouldn't have to pay anything if I'm not there. So am I the idiot for moving out after my parents told me to give my space to my brother and his family? Not the idiot. Your parents made you pay $1,800 for a room in Edmonton, and you were only there for 2 weeks. Your family is taking advantage of you. You also gave them $500. Don't feel bad for leaving and don't look back. Lord, tell me you're the scapegoat without telling me you're the scapegoat. There was no communication, no family meeting, no decision together. They decided unilaterally to evict you from the space you were living in to support your brother without any conversation and expected you to take it. I think there's nothing wrong with helping your parents, so I wouldn't necessarily say your old rent was a problem, but it's crazy that they would kick you out and expect the rent and grocery money to remain unchanged. Honestly, it's healthier for you to be on your own anyway. $1,800 for 2 weeks is overcharging for a basement suite. Opie's parents overcharged her rent. Then they kicked her to a small room to accommodate their son and expect her to grin and bear it. I'm pretty sure they've never heard the term, "don't bite the hand that feeds you." In this case, they mauled the hand that fed them. Yep, exactly. That's what the family wanted. Free, easy $1,800 and the ability to shove OP wherever they wanted. Don't forget about the babysitting. Her parents raised her and her brother. Sister-in-law is exhausted and needs help on demand. OP, you didn't agree to subsidize your entire family on your salary while you stayed in a tiny hobby room and babysit nibblings. Food too? That's just extra ridiculous. Good on you for moving out and getting way better all-inclusive, warmer accommodation with a few margaritas thrown in. I've been seeing Jack for 2 years now, but we live separately due to the kids, and I just want to make sure this is 100% all in before uprooting them. I have 2 sons, young teen twins, and 1 daughter, tween. He has 1 daughter, a young teen. We do weekend stays together twice a month so far, and honestly there haven't been any significant issues. The girls have gotten into a few petty arguments, but other than that, no significant problems. I spend around $1,000 a month on food that covers me and my kids, plus Jack and his daughter for the 2 monthly visits. I do a lot of meal prep and couponing. Last month, my mother asked my kids and me to go to her place in Louisiana to help her move out of her home and into a 50-plus community. It made me feel more comfortable to have my house occupied in my absence, to keep the dehumidifiers and everything running. Huge moisture issues, and I don't want anything to mold or rust. So I asked Jack if he and his daughter wanted to stay at my place for 2 weeks in our absence to keep everything running smoothly. I gave it a 2-week time frame, but was unsure of how long it would actually take. I knew the drive alone would be 2 days there and 2 days back. He agreed. I did my monthly shop before leaving and spent $1,092. I told them they could have some of my food when we were gone, so maybe this is my fault. Anyway, we got back 2 days ago, 4 days before the 2-week mark, and found my house practically in ruin. Dirty dishes on the counters and table, dirty clothes throughout the living room and bedrooms, mine and my daughter's, where they slept. I keep my house clean, so this caused a lot of panic on my end. I grew up in a hoarder house, so I take pride in a clean home. But the one thing that truly tipped me over the edge was finding that they went through at least 90% of the food I bought before leaving in less than 2 weeks. We were left with a single pack of hamburgers, all the veggies, and a few boxes of pasta. Jack started scrambling when we entered the home, saying, "Sorry, I was going to clean before you got back, but I didn't expect you so soon." I just gave a hushed, "Please leave." He and his daughter left. But after giving it some thought, I told him he had to reimburse us for the $1,000 worth of food he and his daughter ate. I told him their intake was repulsive. I told him he could have some, not eat everything in the house and leave us with nothing. He said that he'd allowed his kid to have her friends over, and they ate a lot, but that he shouldn't have to give me $1,000, given that I told him they could eat the food. That I have more than enough money, true, and he doesn't, also true. I still want to be reimbursed, however, and yes, we split up. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Not only did they trash your home, he allowed his daughter to have friends. Not just one without asking you. You just got a good glimpse of what your future looks like if you live with that man and his daughter. He is responsible for the grocery bill. Send him the bill. Remind him that he allowed his daughter and friends to consume all of your food, so he should replace it. You don't deserve it, and neither do your kids. That's what confuses me. In what world does a guest invite other guests? I could maybe understand if the daughter was old enough to be in a group project and the project partners came for a couple of hours. That I can almost see, but even that feels like broken boundaries to me. Darling, what does this mooch even bring to the table? What they did wasn't house-sitting. Did you check to see if the dehumidifier was even dumped? Everyone's the idiot here. When someone is house-sitting for you, it's customary to provide them with some food. However, that does not include feeding people for a party. Asking him to pay the total $1,000 is too big of an ask. He's also an idiot for letting the house get untidy, but that doesn't really affect whether he owes you the full $1,000. Also, I don't understand why you would do your monthly shopping before leaving on a 2-week trip. That makes no sense whatsoever. Update: the one dehumidifier in the bedroom hadn't been dumped, but the one in the bathroom and living space was. This may make me sound bad, but I wouldn't consider him house-sitting as doing me any favours. All he had to do was dump out the dehumidifier when it got full. I could have asked my neighbours to do that for $200. He and his daughter live in a small apartment, and coming to my house feels like a vacation to them. Their words, not mine. I have a 2-story home on the beach with 6 bedrooms, a hot tub, a game room, cable, and high-speed internet. They were essentially getting a free vacation, and the only thing they had to do was dump the dehumidifier once a day. I more or less asked for the $1,000 based on principle alone. I don't expect him to give me the money. But since he didn't understand my viewpoint on how it was unacceptable, I asked him for the $1,000 so he could open his eyes and understand how big of a deal it truly was. I did the big shop before leaving because I had work obligations scheduled for when I returned, and going out and doing a big shop in the middle of 4 showings and mandatory seminars would have been a nightmare. I didn't buy any fridge stuff outside what I knew they would eat. Everything I bought was non-perishables, boxed dinners and meat for the freezer. I didn't leave him over the food. I left him because after I tried explaining why this was wrong of him, he accused me of throwing my privilege and money in his face, knowing he's not as financially stable as me, and making him and his daughter feel bad for doing nothing wrong. I've never thrown money in his face, never asked him for anything, and have paid for everything in the past 2 years because he couldn't. Helped him with multiple bills and things his daughter needed without question. So he made me feel stupid, and I won't tolerate it. My 35 male sister-in-law Laura, 33, doesn't have a child. She's been through many losses in the past too. After my wife Madison, 34, gave birth to our son Ethan, we allowed Laura to interact with him. We dropped him at her house if we wanted someone to babysit, etc. Whenever they came here, she played with him and all that. Yesterday, we dropped him at her place again, and when we arrived, she was playing with him. We just remained there for a while and talked while she played with him. I heard her saying, "Where's your mother?" "Your mother's right here," referring to herself. I didn't like that, and Madison didn't either, but it got worse. She said, "And your father's here to play with you as well," referring to her husband. I was about to say something as I was shocked, but then I realized that Ethan now called them Mama and Dada for the first time. It was the first time he ever said his parents' name, and it was theirs. He never called us that before. Madison began to cry a lot while I got furious. I called Laura a witch and asked her what she was thinking calling them that. Her husband got mad and they began to argue, saying that he was as good as their son, etc. Madison accused her of being a damn backstabber, and in the end we took Ethan away from them by asking them not to treat my son as if he's theirs. Laura was crying and her husband shouted at us while we left. I was wondering whether I overreacted. I know they don't have children, so did I do anything wrong? Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Their struggles to have a baby are incredibly sad, and I can see why you're tempted to give them a free pass or feel guilty about setting a reasonable boundary because of it. But it's profoundly unhealthy and threatening for them to be trying to displace you as Ethan's parents. It will be incredibly confusing for him and could result in genuine attachment problems and resentment as he gets older. Time to have a cool-off period from sister-in-law and brother-in-law. Yes, it's wrong of them on many levels, and it's not okay, so of course you got mad. But there's something off. Did you allow Laura to interact with him by babysitting? So you generously gave her childcare responsibilities. Also, how often was that? It sounds often enough for the baby to actually call them Mama and Dada, so probably quite a lot. They're still wrong and sound unhinged, but reevaluate how involved you are and how much you allow others to care for him. I think everyone's the idiot here. My older sister, 30, has been like a mom to me, 24 female, since our dad died when I was 6 and she was 12. Our mother was very absent after Dad died. More absent. Dad was actually the stay-at-home parent for the two of us, and he was the more involved parent in our lives. They were married, by the way. It was just our mother was the parent who preferred to work and was overall more like the stereotype of a dad who works and doesn't do much for his wife or kids. So you can imagine how hard it was when our dad died. When I was 9, my mother met Gavin and they got married the day after my 10th birthday. He was ready to fill the role of a dad in my life, but I was used to my sister and didn't really go to him for stuff. Instead, I chose my sister. I also disliked him for trying because it felt like he was replacing my dad. He was very unsure of himself and didn't really have the best guidance from my mother on anything like that. But I did not want him to be my parent, and I think even with better advice I would have resisted that. He tried though, and I can admit that and say I don't think he generally had any bad intentions. I'm sure it was hard for him to want more, but for me to never want to try back. My sister and I have a very low contact relationship with our mother as adults, and I'd planned not to invite her to my wedding. But a family member suggested I should invite her for appearances' sake and be ready for her to possibly not come. While inviting her, Gavin is also invited, and when he heard I asked my sister to walk me down the aisle, he asked me about possibly doing it or having the father-daughter dance. I told him I would be saving that dance for my sister so we could honour Dad. He told me he would still like to do one of those things and that I'm the closest he ever got to having a kid, and he tried his best, and he feels like I could do that much for him. I told him I wanted my sister, that she and Dad were the only two parents I ever knew. I acknowledged he tried, but I said I never wanted him to be my parent. He told me it was unfair to deny him this when I admitted myself he tried. He said he feels I take my mother's lack of parenting out on him. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Your bond with your sister is such that you've already planned how your wedding will unfold. Unfortunately for your stepdad, you only invited them for appearances' sake. That's very telling. If he insists on playing a role that wasn't intended for him, you may find that they may, in fact, not attend because you're under no obligation to alter your wedding plans for the sake of making a parental figure feel included or fulfilled. I think you should be gentle with Gavin. Gavin wanted to do the right thing. From everything you said, your lack of attachment to Gavin had less to do with any issue on his side and more about your own relationship with your sister and your father's memory. You could tell him you appreciate his offer, but you decided on your sister. It sounds like Gavin is a good guy who tried his best, and I understand him wanting to be part of the wedding somehow. While Gavin seems like a good guy and asking in itself isn't wrong, he's making it about himself now that she's turned him down. It's now how unfair when it's OP's wedding. He can feel hurt, but arguing with her over her decision is idiot behaviour. Just as OP doesn't get to decide how Gavin feels about the decision, Gavin doesn't get to decide how OP feels about who's best suited for the role. I get it, but OP's still kind of the idiot. I get you were young when your dad died and you're used to your sister filling that role, but he's also just trying to be a positive part of your life, and you constantly throw it back in his face for what appears to be nothing more than that angsty, he's not my real dad routine. Live your life how you want, but don't pretend you have a real reason to dislike him and not let him into your life this whole time.